anime and manga characters that are life-changing. This list is completely based off my own opinion, as these characters impacted or even changed my life in a way. This is just my personal opinion, and I'm going to explain how all these characters impacted or even changed my life and how they very well could impact yours. The first character I'm going to talk about on this list is Guts from Berserk. At first, we see Guts as a badass who carries a heavy sword around and just likes to fight people. But the more you follow him through his constant struggles and just learn about who he really is as a person, you can't help but become very attached to Guts. Guts is probably the most beloved, or one of the most beloved protagonists in manga, and I believe Guts is so beloved because of his determination. Remember the indomitable human spirit trend that was blowing up on TikTok for a little while? Well, that trend perfectly describes Guts. His determination to never give up. After everything this dude goes through, he keeps pushing forward and never gives up. And Guts is no hero, but he's not a bad person either, and I would steer him in the direction of more of a good person than he is a bad person. When Guts comes to care for a person, he really comes to care for that person. He protects them. He would fight 100 men for them, and he always stays brave no matter what situation he's in. Clear evidence of this is him doing so much for Casca. When Casca was broken and destroyed, Guts did everything in his power to protect and help her. And it's not just Casca we see Guts helping. We see him be there for Griffith in the Golden Age arc when they're still friends in the Hawks. He was there for the Black Swordsman party. And even though Guts is this big, strong dude, at heart he's broken. He's a broken person. He's just good at masking it. Guts has a very hard time expressing his emotions to other people because of everything he's been through in his life. Griffith, his best friend, betrayed him. His father attempted to kill him, and his only parental figure in his life died when he was very young. And not to mention, Griffith was really the first person in Guts' life that really cared for Guts at all. But even after everything he's been through, he never has been a bad person. During the Golden Age arc, we see Guts struggle to find out his purpose in life. What is he doing with his life? And of course, after the eclipse, Guts decides to dedicate his life to killing Griffith and getting his revenge for the Hawks. And the more we see Guts go through the story, we see that he ends up caring less and less by the end of the story about his revenge. He comes to care more about his new friends and Casca and keeping them safe. It's like Guts becomes a kinder person with each struggle he faces. When I said this earlier, that Guts just keeps moving forward, he moves forward not for himself, but for the people he cares about. At first, he would just move forward for himself because he didn't want to die. But later in the story, we see Guts fight for other people. He fights with his sword for other people, and Casca for the Black Swordsman party. And I personally think Guts is one of the most impactful characters in manga without a doubt. His determination is probably the most impactful part of his character, but for me, what I really love about Guts is no matter what he faces, he never turns into a bad person. Most characters go through so much in their life, and they go on to become villains. Pain from Naruto, Darth Vader from Star Wars, Joker from Batman, and you get the point. And at the beginning of Berserk, we see Guts as a selfish person, and we see him have his little edgy phase in the Lost Children arc. But we all see Guts grow throughout Berserk, and he becomes more selfless. He becomes a kinder, gentler person. Guts had every right to be the villain, but he doesn't become one. He never becomes the bad guy. Guts' determination is to keep moving forward, but also be a good person at the same time after everything he's gone through. And I think this is why Guts is so impactful. No matter what happens to Guts, I don't think he'll ever turn to being a bad person. Guts is not like Griffith. Griffith will use people, he'll manipulate people for whatever he wants. And Griffith, I won't say Griffith has had an easy life. He of course hasn't. But compared to Guts, Griffith is smooth sailing. Like, Guts has had it way worse, and he's still a good person. And I love that so much about his character. But no matter what you're going through, you can always keep pushing through it. And I feel like I learned that the best through Guts. Next up on the list, I have Thorfinn from Vinland Saga. Thorfinn has probably had the most impact out of any anime character. He legit started a very popular trend, which was I have no enemies, and it got so big to the point where people that don't even watch anime or Vinland Saga were doing this trend. The man started a whole trend about being a better person. After seeing Thorfinn go from a killer who didn't care about other people and only sought out revenge to someone who is trying to make a country of no slavery, no war, and just peace in being Vinland is one of my favorite journeys for a character of all time, and a very impactful one. When we see Thorfinn as a young kid to a teen, he's very driven to kill Askeladd, and it becomes the only thing he's living for. It consumes his life so much that he will kill any general, any person, or do any deed for a duel with Askeladd. And of course, Thorfinn wants revenge because Askeladd killed his father. But what Thorfinn doesn't realize at the time is that his father would have been happier if he had just forgotten about his death and just didn't care about revenge. Thorfinn had completely broke his father's wishes of being a true warrior, a kind person who is strong but doesn't need to kill others. And Thorfinn only wants to kill Askeladd in a duel of honor because that's what his father did before he died. Fought Askeladd in a duel of honor just to be betrayed. Thorfinn thinks he will do his father justice by taking Askeladd's head in a duel, when simply that's just not the case. When Askeladd dies and we see Thorfinn become empty with no purpose, he has nothing in life anymore, and it takes him a while, but we see Thorfinn overcome his past and dedicate his life to starting a country of peace. We see Thorfinn do this because this is what Thor would have wanted Thorfinn to do, and because Thorfinn himself also wants to do it. Thorfinn wants to be a kind and strong person, a true warrior like his father mentioned at the start of Vinland Saga. And throughout the story, as Thorfinn is becoming a better person, the others around him are also changing for the better. In the slave arc is when Thorfinn starts to become a better person. The Eastern Expedition arc is where we see Thorfinn be challenged to stay true to his word and his new philosophy, especially when Thorfinn finds out that Floki had Thor's be killed. Thorfinn had so much rage in that moment, but he controls it and keeps moving towards Vinland and becoming a better person. Thorfinn is a father, he has a wife, he is a leader of a new and upcoming country, which he hopes to make a strong and peaceful one. Thorfinn at the beginning of the story to now is just a beautiful thing to read. His journey of becoming a true warrior, Thorfinn has changed many lives or impacted them. After reading Vinland Saga and seeing Thorfinn change, you want to start becoming a better person. You start to really think about your actions before you do them and just really question your life as a whole. Vinland Saga and seeing Thorfinn's journey has the power to completely change your mindset and just how you think about things. Are you really a good and kind person, and what could you be doing to be a better person? Reading Vinland Saga through Thorfinn has the power to completely change your view on life and how you want to treat others and how you want to act overall in your life. Ken Kaneki, a character you probably expected not to see on the list, especially anime watchers, but manga readers might understand why I put Kaneki on this list and why he's so impactful. And speaking of manga, everything I'm talking about regarding Kaneki is from the manga, not the anime. When we first meet Kaneki, he is a kid living a simple life. All of that changes when he becomes a ghoul and his life gets flipped on its head. We see Kaneki struggle to accept himself as a ghoul for the first part of the series, with him just complaining about being a ghoul, but over time he comes to love the ghouls at Anteiku and just accept himself. He comes to care about the ghouls just as much as humans and doesn't just see them as monsters anymore. But he then does get tortured and we see his transformation, and during this torture, we see Kaneki struggle with the death of his mom and who he is as a person. But he accepts his new life as a ghoul and decides to become stronger to protect the people around him that he cares about. As Kaneki sees it, he needs to be the hero that protects everyone. Thinking that he needs to do everyone a service, in reality, no one wanted Kaneki to leave, and no one needed this service he so badly wanted to give. We actually see people just worry and wish for his return. As Toka said on the bridge when she punched Kaneki, no one asked you to be some type of hero. And towards the end of part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul, we see Kaneki accept that he was being a selfish person. He left because he wanted to become stronger. He wanted to be seen as a hero. He was tired of being this weak, frail person. In the end, he left for his own personal interests, not for others. Kaneki also did want to protect his friends, but he was lying to himself when it came to the main reason of forming this group and going out and fighting more powerful ghouls. We then see Kaneki as Heisei in part 2 of Tokyo Ghoul, or Tokyo Ghoul Re, and he makes new friends, gets a big brother and a big sister figure in his life, and he just likes his new life as an investigator. When Kaneki does regain his memories and we see him as the Black Reaper, he's lost everything in his life. He's lost his best friend, he's lost his parents, he's lost his new friends as investigators, he's lost all of his ghoul friends, he even lost himself. So once again, we see Kaneki gain this mindset that he needs to save everyone and decides that he will save all the ghouls and die in the battle with Arima, completing his final job. We actually see a shift in Kaneki's thinking midway through this fight as he has a last conversation with Hide, or like a vision conversation with Hide, and he completely changes his mind and decides that he wants to end up living. He then decides to create a world of peace between humans and ghouls, as that's what Arima wanted, and once again we see Kaneki trying to do everything on his own. Just like how he did in the first part of Tokyo Ghoul, he is acting the same way but with a somewhat different motivation, which leads Kaneki turning into the dragon and causing loads of destruction. Everything again he did was for a self-interest. He truly did not care about who he stepped over. He just wanted to feel needed by someone. He wanted to feel like someone needed him. He wants to be the strong hero that protects everyone. He wants to be known as that person. Even though we see Kaneki accept himself as a person in both worlds, ghoul and human, he never truly accepts who he is deep down. And when he does accept who he is, we see him take responsibility for his actions by stopping Futura and ending all the chaos. Even though Kaneki has been through so much in his life, we finally see him realize that it was not for nothing. That's because of all the events in his life, he found out how how to truly live as a person. We see Kaneki go through so much in Tokyo Ghoul, but at the end of it, he comes out happy. He finally accepts this world he's been put into and accepts himself as a person. We even see him thank Rize for trying to kill him that night and turning him into a ghoul, because without that, he would have still been that simple kid living that simple life. He would have never truly accepted himself, or he would have never truly found happiness. But now he can look back and appreciate everything he's gone through. He can say that he's a happy person now. He has many friends, he has a wife, he has a kid, and I don't think he would trade any of that for that simple life he was going down before he turned into a ghoul. When it comes down to it, you will never be happy with a certain item or a certain thing in your life. And what I mean by that is, if you say, I'll be happier if I get a better job, or I make more money, or I meet the love of my life, or I get my dream physique, it won't matter, because at the end of the day, you just have to appreciate what you have and what you are, what you want to be in life. Happiness is really just a mindset. You can determine how you want to wake up in the morning, and I think this is shown perfectly through Kaneki's character. Kaneki helped me realize to just accept who I am and be appreciative of everything that's happened to me in my life and who I want to be moving forward. And of course, there were other factors in my life that helped me out with this realization, but Kaneki was a major factor, and reading a fictional character in this manga really helped me just accept who I am as a person. Next up on the list, I have Mori from The Climber. Compared to other characters on this list, I personally don't think Mori is nearly as impactful as them, but I still wanted to add him onto the list because he's still hands down a very impactful character. The main thing about Mori is his loneliness. We see Mori be so determined to climb mountains because he can get away from people in society. From the start of the story to when he meets his wife, Mori just prefers to be up in the sky because he feels free and he can get away from people. And one aspect of The Climber I really like is that the characters are always changing constantly, because Mori has a falling out with them. There's never a complete side cast of characters. The characters are always changing except for Mori. Mori gets treated like shit by so many people so many times. He got robbed not just once but twice by his high school friends, and the climbing team he was with treated him horribly. Overall, this dude has just had no good experiences with people. I think introverts can really relate to Mori because of his way with people. I personally relate to Mori a lot. I am a very introverted person, and even if you are not introverted and you're good at talking to people, I feel like you can understand Mori's side of things, and The Climber does a really good job of making you feel his loneliness, as the story completely revolves around him and his journey of overcoming solitude. And this is the most impactful part of Mori's character. We see the struggles of Mori and his loneliness with him having to overcome it to survive. Seeing Mori be this awkward young adult to a loving father at the end of the series shows that Mori becomes content with his surroundings and becomes okay with people. He's okay with being on the ground in society. When we see Mori make it his goal to climb K2, he's never content with climbing these big 8,000 meter high mountains on the way to the journey of getting to K2, because the only thing on his mind is the K2 mountain. We see Mori save all of his money for many years just to be able to climb K2, and when Mori is a family man and his life has changed, he still decides to go to K2 knowing that he will most likely die and not survive. When we see Mori climbing up K2, we of course see him dreaming about being at his daughter's wedding or her first day of school. When we see Mori at the end of the story, when he climbs up that little rock and looks so happy, he's the happiest we've ever seen him in the story. He's just content with life. It doesn't matter that he climbed K2. The only thing that matters is he overcame his solitude and became happy with his life and his surroundings. The whole story, we follow Mori's rock climbing journey, but in reality we are just following his challenge of overcoming solitude. And throughout the story we see Mori become better with people and not be such an awkward person as we saw him early in the story. And what's so impactful about Mori is that you can overcome anything. Any challenge in life, you can overcome it. Also, to be content. Mori climbs so many huge mountains, but the happiest he's ever been was when we see him climb this tiny little rock at the end of the series, because that's the real accomplishment. The panel that says Mori dies, it means that the old Mori is gone. The Mori that dreamed of climbing K2, the Mori that didn't like being on the ground, this obsessed lonely man in the past is gone. Mori is a new person. He's happy with his life, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Mori and Kaneki are kind of alike. Kaneki accepts himself in the world he's in, and Mori comes to also accept the ground and the world he's been put into, and he doesn't try to escape it all the time later in the story. We see him just be content towards the end with his life in society. No matter what you do in life or what you achieve, as long as you're happy, nothing else really matters. For me personally, Mori really impacted me, especially with his solitude, and it really just shows that any person can overcome solitude no matter who you are. The final character I'm going to be talking about on this list is Musashi from Vagabond. We all know that Musashi at the beginning of Vagabond wanted to be the strongest swordsman. It was like this for the majority of the story, as we see Musashi travel around Japan and fight new and more powerful opponents so that he can achieve real strength, because he wants to become invincible evil under the sun. Well, that all changes as we see him kill the 70 Yoshiko students, and he becomes one of the most known and most powerful swordsmen in Japan. But after this, he ends up feeling terrible about himself. We see Musashi completely change and regret the bloodshed that he had spilled, and we see him become a farmer. In the farming arc, we see Musashi faced with a new challenge, being that he wants to learn how to farm. In this arc, we see that instead of Musashi being the invincible swordsman, he becomes the unstoppable farmer. And what I mean by that is Musashi became invincible, but in this arc, he becomes truly unstoppable by learning a new skill and trying to master it. Nothing could stop him from becoming the best farmer he could. So instead of being at the top, being unstoppable is when even when you are at the top, you keep pushing for even more and more greatness. And I think we see that from Musashi in this arc. And in Vagabond, we see Musashi come across a lot of very strong opponents, and some have his mind completely boggled on the fact of how powerful and how much influence they have. He wonders how he can get that same influence and have that same impact. But in reality, he had the same influence as them from the start. He was infinite from the beginning of the story. One of my favorite quotes in manga is, "Preoccupied with a single leaf, you won't see the tree. Preoccupied with a single tree, you will miss the entire forest." This one quote describes Musashi's whole life. He was so focused on becoming the best swordsman and becoming a super powerful dude that he completely forgot about every other factor in his life. And we see this way down on him later in the story. So we pretty much see Musashi reinvent himself. And along with this journey he goes on, we see Musashi become a kinder, wiser, and a truly stronger person. After every man he kills, every battle he wins, the most impactful part of Musashi's character, in my opinion, is him becoming unstoppable. He learns from every loss and every win he has. He realizes that he has wasted 20 years of his life just focusing on this single part of his life. He completely forgets about everything else in his life, the girl he loves, his best friend, just tons of things, and he completely just forgets how to live his life other than being a swordsman. But it's like he reinvents himself over and over again. No matter your past, you can start to become a better person that you want to be. If you are a bad person, you can choose to be a better person. If you want to do a certain thing in your life, but you are restricted by your past, you can reinvent yourself and change for the better. Just because you're not as successful as someone that you look up to or anything like that doesn't mean that you can't do something, that you can't push towards something. And I think Musashi's character shows that you can become unstoppable at truly anything you put your mind to, and also just become a better, kinder, wiser person for all of your hard experiences in your life. This is my list of anime manga characters that changed my life. All these characters are absolutely amazing and very impactful. Guts for his determination and perseverance, Kaneki for his acceptance, Thorfinn for his kindness, Mori for overcoming the journey of solitude, and Musashi for finding true meaning in his life. This list is just my opinion and reasons why I think each character is impactful. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you check out my channel. I post anime and manga related content just like the video you're watching right now. Well, anyways, peace.